Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum. I am your host Faisal Raza Khan and you are watching Foresight. Viewers, unfortunately, December 11, 2023, Indian Supreme Court verdict not only validated the 5th of August 2019 illegitimate Indian actions to strip off Article 370 and 35A from its constitution, but also given go-ahead to its military to have genocide in the occupied territory. Along with that, it proved that the Indian state institutions are working for the Modi regime. They are supporting Hindutva extremism and fueling terrorism, particularly the state-sponsored terrorism, not only in occupied Kashmir, but also in the region and beyond. Many state institutions like military and judiciary became the tool of Rashtriya Swayam Sevak Sangh ideology, destabilizing the region and fueling the saffron terrorism. Pakistan is the sheer victim of Indian state-sponsored terrorism, and most of the countries are also. Now the question arises, there are lots of questions, that what an extremist India intend to, and how it's gradually imposing the hegemonic designs, why India using state-sponsored terrorism as a tool of its foreign policy. To get answers of these questions, we have in our studios Saira Ejaz, senior analyst. Most welcome to you. Brigadier retired Hamid Rashid Malik, he is an expert in foreign affairs. Along with us, we have Dr. Wasim Ishaq. He has joined us online. He is expert in international relations. So most welcome to you, sir, as well. First question, Saira, to you, that why Indian Modi regime particularly fueling this state-sponsored terrorism and Hindutva ideology, and what it means in the region?
Actually, we have to look into the basics of the political ideology of the current regime of India, that is BJP, and headed by Prime Minister Modi. It's written in their manifesto that they want that this land of India belongs to Hindus and all other religious minorities, and people do not belong to this land, and there is some historical background to it. And when it comes to the regional stability and balance, I think I feel that there is a nexus between Israel and headed by the Netanyahu and the India headed by the Modi. Look at the similarity, what the Israel is doing in the West Bank and Gaza, and what India has been doing since like many decades in Kashmir. But when it comes to the revocation and the repealing the
Article
370A and 35A, it shows that let's come to understand it in a simple means, because earlier they had the state to some extent Jammu and Kashmir and the region of Ladakh had some autonomy. Definitely it was, again, for the last 70 years it was not the full autonomy. It was the largest military occupation was there and all that, but they had their own flag, they had their own constitution, whether it's working or not. But the most important,
that was not actually granted. That was was what the UN Security Council resolutions actually given to them, the autonomy within the Indian constitution.
I'm coming to that point. What the point is that the only the strong base they had before 2019 was that no non-Kashmiri can buy land there, can call themselves the resident and the property owner within
Brigadier
the land.
Hamid, when we are talking about Indian saffronization or Hindutva ideology and all that, do you think that the Indian institutions, particularly judiciary and its military, are now become the part of saffron terrorism?
Surely. What we have seen in the past, that the Jammu and Kashmir, which was granted special status because the fraudulent accession which was signed in 1947, Jawaharlal Nehru as well Mahatma Gandhi, and also at that time the Governor General, they accepted that the Kashmiris will be given self-determination right through plebiscite, and it was also as per the United Nations Security Council also. But what we have seen, that first the Indian defense forces became pawn in the hand of Indian government, and they had a crackdown in Kashmir, and up till now, as per the estimate, 42,000 Kashmiris has been killed during the crackdown. And when we come to the latest episode, that is after 5 August 2019, we have seen the worst type of terrorism. And this terrorism again, when the Indian Defence Forces became pawn of Modi. And now what we have seen, that Supreme Court of India has also joined hand with the Indian government, and it is the worst type of, I think, the draconian, I think, decision and judgment given by the Indian Supreme Court, because earlier also the same case has been heard 3 times in the Supreme Court of India, and the Supreme Court of India previously decided that this special status is as per the Constitution. And though, as Saira also highlighted, that the actual autonomy was not given to Kashmir, but at least there was certain protection which was being accorded to Kashmiris.
Obviously.
And what we have seen now, that this judgment has deprived the Kashmiris of their right, and human rights suffering has not been paid any heed by the Indian Supreme Court, and it has stood with the tyrant government of Modi, which is, I think, very worrisome, not only for India, because earlier India was known as a secular India, the shining India. It was. But now what we witness, it is a Hindutva, tyrant India, and a burning India, and which is not in favor of the Hindus also, and for the region also.
Well elaborated. Dr. Wasim, when we are particularly talking about the recent judgment by the Indian Supreme Court, some of the critics within India, they are of the view that this was expected, because as it was in the Babri Mosque case, because if a judgment is expected before it's announced, so it means that all of the state institutions are ruined, and they are at decline.
Yes, absolutely. There is no doubt that the judgment given by the Indian Supreme Court was very much expected. But we should also not be surprised, because ever since Prime Minister Modi took over BJP as well as the Indian government, he has embarked upon a plan which is in international relations we call salami slice, gradually annexing, gradually changing the mood, gradually occupying different things. And the end result we saw in 2019, and the end state we have seen now with the Supreme Court judgment. But today, I say that India has been betrayed. I also say that the instrument of accession, which Brigadier Hamid just referred to, the legal validity of this instrument of accession has not yet been established as per my research. So whatever document it was produced, its legality is yet to be established. So that means whatever is happening, it is happening in the air. And then the most worrisome development is that in starting from 1947 till the death of Jawaharlal Nehru, at 20 different national and international occasions, he always mentioned plebiscite in Kashmir to determine the wishes of the people of Kashmir and the future of Kashmir. But see how this founding fathers' vision, our founding fathers' commitment to international community and commitment to Kashmiris has been ridiculed by the current BJP government. We should also not be surprised that all state institutions work in the supreme national interest of that country. So therefore, whatever is happening in India today is probably from their perspective is in their supreme national interest. But what is worrisome development today, why India and the current government particularly chose this time frame starting from 2019 until today to really annex the issue of Kashmir and to have a unilateral judgment, because Pakistan is also party to that, and partly China is also party to that in the area of accession. So therefore, there are United Nations Security Council resolution number 47 of 1948. So it is a legal binding on the international community as well as all these 3 countries to have a legal course rather than having a unilateral decision to annex the entire land. So now, but my research also indicates that starting from 2017, when the US had a special sort of status given to India in US national security strategy, ever since India's all actions have been legitimized. The great powers, United States, is not at all concerned what India is doing internally or what is India doing regionally, because India is pivotal in US Indo-Pacific strategy and pivot to Asia strategy. So therefore, starting from 2008 NSG waiver until today, India-US strategic partnership has grown over a period of time. So therefore, whatever India is doing inside is probably United States is totally ignoring. Russia has a balanced relationship
Dr.
with
Wasim,
India.
do you think that any country can validate or a court can endorse an internal illegal or unjustified, illegitimate legislation on an internationally recognized disputed territory?
No court within the country, within the national boundaries can do that. But that's why I said a salami slice tactic started in 2019, which has ended now with calibrated actions at each interval. If we start following the BJP's initial manifesto for election, and as they gradually progress in the last 6 years, we have seen that there was a proper designed roadmap to annex this part of Kashmir. So therefore, legitimizing by their national Supreme Court should not be a surprise for us, although from our perspective, it is illegal. But maybe from their perspective, they consider it legal, despite the fact that the international community is also involved, United Nations Security Council is involved, and there are 3 warring parties into this, and nobody has been consulted.
So, Dr. Wasim, if outrightly India or Indian state institutions or Supreme Court, they are violating international law, and the custodians of international law are totally mum on that, no international organization, including United Nations, along with United States or any other country, they are not taking notice of this, what is happening in India and what they are doing with an international acclaimed dispute.
Yes, they are keeping mum because India has greater relevance in the great game of the United States-led international order, especially in the ASEAN and Indo-Pacific region. So therefore, they would ignore, as they are ignoring the Israeli actions and barbaric actions in Gaza. So therefore, they are endorsing Indian actions inside Kashmir. Although it is totally illegal, so now it is a binding on us as a party to the conflict to raise our voice, and rightly so we have raised at national forums, and now we have to take this to international forums. We need to move to the International Court of Justice. We need to move to UN Security Council. We need to take this issue in UN General Assembly. And we also have to take on all multilateral organizations. We need to engage with Russia and China as well, Middle Eastern partners as well. So we have to raise our voice to highlight these Indian injustices and unilateral decision that has to be highlighted, and international community has to be convinced through our skillful diplomacy.
Your point well taken, Brigadier Retired Wasim. When we are talking about the Indian Apex Court decision, any country's court can challenge international law?
Not at all, because what I think Supreme Court of India missed out, I already highlighted that 3 times this issue has gone to the Indian Supreme Court, and they have said that the Constitution, no court can go and cancel any act of the Constitution. It is only I think the National Assembly which can do that. But here what we have seen, the Hindutva mindset still prevailing, and also you alluded that the defense forces as well as Supreme Court of India has become pawn in the hands of Modi, which is I think not only will be harmful for India, but for the region also, because what we have seen up till now, that India is not acting as a very responsible regional country, and cross-border terrorism is also emanating from India. They have even gone to Canada to kill one of the Sikh activists, and I think in America also and in England also, such type of irresponsible acts by India is making India, I think, a big trouble for the region. And we have also seen that SAARC is not very active and dynamic because of the Indian hegemony. So in that context, what we see in the region, that apart from Afghanistan, India is emerging as one of the most potent threat for the region. And I think this threat also, and also the human rights violations in Kashmir, the international community, the human rights activists are keeping mum and a blind eye on Kashmir. I think Pakistan has now an opportunity for a skillful diplomatic maneuver to make world realize that human rights violation any part of the world need to be addressed, either in Gaza or in Kashmir. Because what we have seen that up till now 100,000 houses and shops have been burnt in Kashmir, and about 50,000 youth in Kashmir is missing. Either they have been killed or they have been kept in illegal detention by the defense forces of India. And I think this is the point where
so,
not only the international...
Do you think that any conflict area, particularly regarding the illegitimate and illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, along with the Gaza, which is under the occupation of Israel. Do you think that now these human rights violations, this genocide, war crimes, they are going to be legal because international community and particularly the P5 countries, they are paying not much heed to the human rights violations across?
When we have seen in the context of Gaza, the failure of the United Nations Security Council became obvious. And again, when we see in case of Kashmir, we see that international community has failed to perform its task. And when it comes to human rights, there are about 30 international conventions on human rights. And when it comes to Kashmir, nobody is worried, and it is only Pakistan. And I must say that our Foreign Office statement 2 days before that we will keep supporting our Kashmiri brethren diplomatically as well as politically, and their human rights violations are a source of concern for us. And Pakistan would like to play, I think, very proactive role when it comes to Kashmir. And we must realize and sensitize the international community that this human rights violations will not remain restricted to Kashmir.
Definitely,
this can spill over to the part of the
there
world.
There must be the realization that how the human rights violations are to be taken as the crime against humanity. So, Saira, do you think that world is going to legalize these human rights violations wherever, whenever those are going to be committed?
I don't think so, because history tells us that oppression, these illegal detentions and these, the annexations won't last for too long. Sometimes some struggles are, are longer than some ones, but at the end of the day, the history is full of the examples where, there are, ruins of empires who used to annex, who used to, conquer people, but by the end of the time, they have to submit to the will of the people. So I think we should not be discouraged and we should not be hopeless regarding this. But yes, it is a matter of sheer violation of human rights. But I would also link here to there are certain strategic issues, certain political demands. Let's look at this this thing from this another angle, that is of elections going to be held in India. India bashing is never a political leverage if you look at the thing in here elections in Pakistan. But Pakistan bashing, anti-Pakistan sloganeering and Kashmir issue is always a political leverage for the Indian parties when it comes to election. So okay. I think they are doing all this from this angle. So
you intend to talk that now this Supreme Court verdict has given a much sloganeering to the Modi regime to have next elections win or something like that.
I look at this.
So, Dr. Wasim, when we are talking about these human rights violations, Pakistan and most of the countries are taking it very seriously, but unfortunately it is the West who actually termed the coin or coined the term, but unfortunately they are not adhering it. They are, it seems that whatever is happening in the world right now, they are legalizing these human rights violations. For example, Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir.
Yes, as it appears on its face value, you are absolutely right. But my research indicates that there is a silver lining also in this entire episode, whatever has happened in last few weeks. I have gone through a lot of literature. It indicates most of the Congress leaders have rejected outrightly the Supreme Court's decision. And since it has a Nehru legacy, so therefore 20 Nehru's commitments, international commitments for having a plebiscite and self-determination for Kashmir, that legacy is being carried on by the Congress of today, though it is not very strong and very powerful, but it has a very effective voice in Indian Union. Now, as per their statements, that in unity in diversity and shining India and rising India, probably the slogan is now getting obsolete because of the rising extremism in terms of Hindu ideology. The society which erstwhile time used to be very harmonious for all the religions, all the class and creed, has now been divided on especially two lines, that is the Hindu and the non-Hindu. And non-Hindu includes Muslims and Christians and everybody. So this fracturing of society is far more dangerous, and it is going to impact the overall harmony within the Indian society and the Indian Union. And maybe if it is not checked rightly, it may even cause dangerous repercussions for the statehood of the Indian Union. So therefore,
Dr. Wasim, do you think that any system in the world permits any other country or the nation state to just snatch the fundamental rights and the human rights of the common people in any territory?
No international and no national system even allows the forceful annexation of any territories or forceful imposition or unilateral imposition of some wishes. If it was the voice of entire India through some sort of referendum, we could have seen it maybe we could have analyzed it from a different angle. But this is just one man's ideology imposed upon part of the India, while the society as such is being pushed to extremism. This is a very, very dangerous trend in India. So therefore, while it may give them a tactical victory during the upcoming elections, but overall strategically it is called India is moving towards strategic defeat, because the kind of posture, the kind of stature which India has been projecting since last 20 years, it's overall from the inside, its graph is going far down than somebody might have anticipated.
So extract from your response, do you think that there is emerging extremism or some sort of retaliation from within India?
There is extremism is one tendency, and as the Congress is now gearing up, and I'm sure in the upcoming elections the Congress would have the legacy of Nehru, so they would have certainly a different viewpoint on Kashmir, and as well as they would also like to cash on the Muslim votes and Muslim population, and maybe the non-Muslims, all the non-Muslims also, because they've also been victim of the extremism of the Hindutva ideology of BJP. So therefore, there's now a clear-cut division of India, one on extremism side and one on the non-extremism side. So therefore, that will create a new inter-sectorial, inter-provincial disharmony in India, which was never before, which was not even anticipated before.
So taking your point, Brigadier Retired Hamid Sahab, do you think that Indian Supreme Court decision has actually given a go-ahead or some sort of a license to its military or to its security forces to have genocide in Kashmir, to commit the war crimes, because this is the validity of all that?
I think the Supreme Court of India has assessed that the Indian Defence Forces were not able to achieve the targets which were set by Modi. And it is also one of the announcement of defeat by the Modi government also, because what we see that from 5 August 2019 up till now, a worst crackdown has been witnessed by the Kashmiris, and their also election has been delayed so long. And when there was some petition filed in Supreme Court of India that they should ask the Modi government for the elections to be held in Kashmir, and the Modi government was fearful that when the election will be held, the new government which will be formed in Kashmir will ask for the stopping and seizure of the crackdown, and when the crackdown will be finished, the freedom struggle, the indigenous freedom struggle, we must say, will spring up again. And what we have seen that they have killed Burhan Wani, but now every youth has become Burhan Wani. They have jailed the Hurriyat Council's leaderships, and Jillani has met with her fate while in detention, but now every person has become a leader of Hurriyat Council. So, and up till now, let me say one more thing, that Mehbooba Mufti, which was firstly known as pro-Indian, has now openly said that this announcement of Supreme Court decision is basically defeat of India, the secular India.
Even Farooq Abdullah, Umar Abdullah and all others.
Actually.
So it looks that Indian statecraft, including judiciary, now geared up for Modi regime's hegemonic designs, particularly in the region or beyond. So do you agree with this notion?
No, I think they are myopic in their thought, because I would like to go with what Saira has said and Dr. Wasim has said. It may be one of the political gimmick which Modi wanted, because in India anti-Pakistan slogan as well as the notion is very popular, and Modi wanted to cash in that. But at the same time, what we see that not only in Kashmir but in another part of the India, we must realize that there are 22 separate movements being there in India. And this decision will not go well with Kashmir as well as with those movements, and especially the northeastern state of India. They are in a state of turmoil, and this decision will tell them that any such action by the Modi will be supported by the judiciary also. And I think this is not only good for India, and it is not good for the region.
So, Saira, when we are talking about, as Brigadier Sahab rightly said, that within India there are lots of separatist movements, but Indian state institution looks that they are validating Modi regime and its hegemonic agenda, designs, along with the regional and international global terrorism. So, how do you respond to it?
Actually, look, when you have the legitimate government in some state, so definitely all other institutions, you know, are you have certain kind of influence on them. Let's accept it. And what we have seen, and that's what we just saw yesterday.
Influence of any government is something else, but serving for that government is another.
That's the dilemma. That's the dilemma. Actually, the so-called largest democracy in the world and the secular state of the world, one of the secular states of the world, they are by themselves are ruining their image, you know. And by this, look, they just, you know, bifurcating now in Jammu and Kashmir into two. They have given their plan into two territories or into two sub-states, that is Jammu and Kashmir, which is a Muslim majority area, and Ladakh, which is a Buddhist majority area. So they are using the tool of religion to, you know, implement their policies, implement their agendas and designs. But somehow I feel that there is a support of international community to them as well, because we have seen when it comes to Ukraine
for their hegemonic designs and the terrorism as well?
And for their yes.
So Brigadier Sahab, how do you respond to it? Because now Modi exploiting its religion, extremism, and resultantly spreading terrorism not only in the region but at the global scale. So how do you see it? Because it is on and on.
I would like to support what Saira said, that there is a tacit approval as well as support of the international community. Because especially in 2023, when there is a lot of uproar of human rights, freedom of humans, and also regional collaboration, connectivity and everything, in such an environment, a country going so much against the human right violations and doing it all, and that too openly. What we have seen for the last 14 months, there was a crackdown, there was no internet in Kashmir, no press was allowed to go there, no journalist was allowed to have any news coming from the Kashmir. In such an environment, I think there is no reaction coming from the international community and the global community also. And what we see, the bigger powers, America or the Europe, because of the myopic thought of the containment of China through India, India has become darling of the world, and people are keeping a blind eye on it just for their own strategic interest.
So why there is a hue and cry at the murder of Hardeep Singh Nijjar from Canada, then endorsement by the United States, Britain, New Zealand, Australia and all others. So what sort of thing is, and there are some cases going on regarding the raw involvement in attempted murder in United States as well. That is also to the Sikh leaders. So what is this?
When we see, as for the Sikh leaders, there is uproar, but not to up that level where the people, they get together at United Security Council, or they go for some other forum for other sanctions, or asking, going to the International Criminal Court of Justice. And I think just for news it is there, but when it comes to the action, we don't see any pragmatic or prudent action taken by the international community, or certain serious questions asked by the Indian leadership. But there are certain silver lining what we have seen in the last 3 months, when India wanted to have BRI conference and they realized that Chinese premier and the Russian premier may not come physically to India because of certain reservations they have, and also the G20 summit of tourism they wanted to have in Kashmir, and we found China and Russia and some other countries missing from that. I think India has also realized there is some, I think, lukewarm response by the international community toward the Indian violations of human rights. But what we would like to see is that some practical steps taken by the international community. And here I would like that this is a golden opportunity available to Pakistan for a skillful diplomatic maneuver, that we should also showcase to the world
Definitely,
what India is doing.
Very important point. Dr. Wasim, when international community is completely silent on what India is doing, illegitimate, illegal, unjustified, whatever we can call it, but do you think that if international community is not taking any action, it means they are with India in its crimes against humanity and particularly to spread terrorism across?
Straightforward answer is yes, but let's see what has happened in Gaza. The United States always vetoed all UN Security Council resolutions in favor of Israel. Likewise, the United States, through its national security strategy of 2017, and let me quote, says that United States welcomes the leadership role of India in the wider Asia-Pacific region. So therefore, in the US grand strategy for this region, India has a pivotal role, starting from pivot to Asia and then Indo-Pacific strategy and the quadrilateral alliance. In the China containment, it figures out vividly. And also during Trump era, the US-India collaboration, it was raised to a great level strategic partnership. So it was further upgraded. And we have recently seen how President Joe Biden was welcomed, and there was a charm offensive, Joe Biden, and when Prime Minister Modi visited the United States last time. So we have seen a great degree of confluence and understanding between these two leaders, and overall, United States giving a blank check to India as it has given to Israel. So therefore, when the United States ignores all these things, so would be the European Union and most of European countries. Russia has always been, even the erstwhile Soviet Union, the partnership relationship with India. Despite the fact that President Putin is maintaining a balanced relationship and balanced approach, but yet they have a softer corner towards India. So in that context, India has got a huge diplomatic space at the international level. So therefore, what all atrocities it is committing inside Kashmir and what all cross-border international terrorism is committing inside USA, in UK, and in Canada, those are being ignored, or even if those are being heard, the response is not as harsher as it could have been in case of some other country which is not very relevant to the United States. So in that context, we have a huge diplomatic space with China. China has outrightly rejected even the revocation of Article 370. And China is a permanent member, P5, with a veto power in UN Security Council. And China is also partly a party to this issue of Kashmir, the wider Kashmir. So therefore, we need to engage China, we need to engage Russia, and we also need to engage United States. And bring in all these atrocities and all those violation of international law and international commitments and violation of UN Security Council resolutions, which have been actually incurred by the current government and endorsed by their Supreme Court. But you see, there is one language which they have used. India, Kashmir is a two-tongue of India. This language has always been used by Prime Minister Modi. So it looks that probably this decision was dictated by somebody from the government, as it appears on its face value. So therefore,
when we are talking about this extremism and extremist ideology within India, how do you respond to this one? Because now India is a nuclear state, along with that its military. Now this extremism and terrorism tendencies are ingressing within the military, and we have witnessed on March 9 last year when there was a supersonic BrahMos missile launched from India. They call it that it was incidentally, but do you think that it was incidentally, or it was gone into the wrong hands, or might be deliberately it was done?
Indian nuclear safety has always been under question. Indian nuclear proliferation has always been under question. So therefore, there are all the more chances that the proliferation has occurred. So, but the kind of tendency, as Brigadier Hamid also highlighted, so many separatist tendencies are all around, spread all around India. There was already a north-south divide between the poorer as well as the rich part. There is yet another dimension which has now been added, that is extremism. And previously, this extremism used to be linked with only the Muslims. But now we have seen extremism in the Hindus and Hindutva culture. So probably Indian society is now in a dilemma where to go and how to create a harmonious society. As the time passes, and if this extremism tendencies go on unchecked, I can assure you that India is going to face a lot of difficulties in terms of internal consolidation. As India claims that it has become #1 populous country, crossing China with certain 1.4 1.4 to 2 billion population. Rightly so, if that so much of population gets uncontrolled, because no military can control so much of population, I'm sure we are heading towards a very, very dangerous scenario where even the statehood of Indian Union would be in great difficulties.
Your
So
point well taken,
we need to-
Brigadier Retired Hamid. When we are talking about an extremist, terrorist, nuclear India, when there is a huge black market existing, when enriched uranium is at sale openly within the market in India. So how do you see that? Because it is going to be a very dangerous phenomena within region.
Surely, and I think this should be the concern of the world also, because it leads to not only the regional stability and security, it is about the global security also. And these weapons may fall into the hand of extremist terrorists also. And what we have seen, as you also highlighted, that the missile firing by the Indian, because in certain establishment and organization installations, there are so many check and balances which are
Definitely, so lots
and
of SOPs, lots of plans.
Yes, and a lot of measures taken that though no accident takes place. And in such an environment, saying just coming clean hand that it was just accidental action taken by a few people and some making a scapegoat by just firing few people. And it's not like that, because it is that the nuclear war could take place because of that, because Pakistan played a very, I think, responsible role in that, and Pakistan leadership must be admired that they kept their cool and they did not act for a knee-jerk response, because if there had been any knee-jerk response, we could have seen a nuclear war in Southeast Asia, which is not in favor of the globe also. So I think in that context also, that International Atomic Energy Commission as well as other institutions and the Security Council should have taken a very serious note of it. And as we have already discussed, there are certain imperative and dynamics why international community is not taking a harsh steps to India and ignoring all the responsible act of the India. But as a responsible community, the global I think nation and global community should take a note of it, and they should ensure that there are certain measures which are adopted by the Indian government, and Modi should be made to sensitize.
Yeah, definitely.
That
Your point
act.
well taken, Saira. When we are talking about this surging extremism and terrorism within the region, what would be the ultimate outcome of that? What would Pakistan do to curtail it?
I think here comes in the diplomatic expertise and diplomatic engagement with India, with the regional other countries, and at definitely with at global level. We need to raise this issue because we are the biggest victims of terrorism. Our both neighbors are we are like right in the center of being punched by the terrorist activities like anything without doing anything. We don't have any right from the day first, our foreign policies of friendliness and have cordial relations with neighboring countries. But unfortunately, our both side neighbors are not realizing this thing, and they have their own agendas and they have their own hegemonic designs. I think here comes the role of media as well, because media has, you cannot avoid and you cannot ignore the in the current regime, in the current scenario of age of information and knowledge, and where the social media is so vibrant and so vigorous. I think Pakistan needs to put up its case at all forums, be it diplomatic, be it media, be it at government level. And I think somehow I feel that engagement is also key to it.
Yeah, definitely
we should
it is.
keep engaging with
definitely.
India.
Thank you very much, Saira, for being with us in studios. Thank you very much, Brigadier Hamid, for being with us in studios, and thank you very much, Dr. Wasim, for being with us at online. And viewers, as our panelists suggested, and whole of the international community thinks about that, an occupied territory which is under the illegitimate occupation of India, Indian Supreme Court verdict cannot legitimize any sort of illegal actions by the Indian state or Indian government, especially in this case the Modi regime. But the rising tendency of the extremism which leads to the regional and global terrorism from India is again a real threat for whole of the region and also for whole of the international community. International world must have to think that illegally occupied Jammu Jammu and Kashmir and its people. They are under oppressed regime of Modi, and they are suffering from the last 75 years. International community must have to adhere the international law, and UN must take action to implement all those UN Security Council resolutions to have fair and free plebiscite for the Kashmiris. This is today's Foresight. It's time to sign off. Allah Hafiz.